Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Jennifer Staples. I am the Secretary for Sustainable Manlius. We are the environmental group for the town of Manlius. We're made up of community and board members, and we are working to start a transition towards renewable energy and raise awareness of environmental issues and promote sustainable public policy within the town of Manlius. So like to welcome you to this tour of Pete's house. It's going to be really interesting, but I also want to tell you about an exciting event that's coming up, which is Earth Fest 2022 at the Fayetteville Free Library. Everybody's invited. It's going to be from 10 to 2 o'clock. And we are going to have EV Row, which is going to be a whole pile of electric vehicles and electric tools, so you can see what those are about. We're going to have lots of tables from different community organizations, all about solar panels and sustainable heating systems and insulation of your houses, native plants and how to grow those and make habitats for native animals and insects and that sort of thing. And lots of things for the kids to do. We're going to get a band out there. We're going to have a food truck. It's going to be just this wonderful little festival. So please do come out for that if you can. And with that, I will turn it over to Peter to get us started on the tour.
Jen, Lindsay?
Actually, before we get going, I just want to mention, if people have questions along the way, feel free to type them in the chat. We're going to mostly do questions at the end, although I will, if there's a pressing question that seems timely to ask, I will facilitate that. And again, I'm Lindsay Spear with Heat Smart CNY, and we're going to pass it over to Pete Wirth and Mike Grabowski from Breathe Easy.
Okay. Lynn and Jen, thank you very much. Lindsay, if you could also put my email address in the chat, if people have questions that you think of after the event, feel free to contact me. It's good to see so many familiar faces. And I'm surprised. I'm actually a little nervous doing this. So, yeah, my name is Pete Wirth. I've lived in this house about 18 years. A little bit about the house itself. It's a 4-bedroom, split level, about 2,000 square feet. It was constructed in the early 60s. Early 60s air sealing, I think, was a word that hadn't been invented yet in the construction trade. They did give a little thought to insulation. There was some fiberglass in the walls, but not a lot. This is going to be a little bit different than most heat smart interviews. I'm going to stray a little bit about some of the environmental features of the house, but I'm going to focus on the heat pumps, the solar panels, the interaction, my gas furnace, dual use system, etc. Lynn, I was actually going to save my motivation more towards the end, but Lindsay said, let's start out with that to frame it. So why did I do all this work this last 18 years? And what you're seeing also might seem like a bit overwhelming, but my style, at least, is every year I, try and do an insulating project or 2 or 3. It could be small, it could be big. That's the way we slowly replaced all the windows in the house. Windows are expensive. We would do it, half a room at a time, a room at a time, keep chipping away. So, what's the motivation? What drove me? Well, some practicalities. The house is very comfortable. There's absolutely no draft. No matter, if there's a gale blowing outside, you wouldn't know it. It's quiet due to the new windows, which are all double pane glass, which are, air sealed all around the windows. Air quality is high. I have fresh filtered air, and I'll show you when we go downstairs into the utility room, an ERV, but also with a heat pump. You're not burning natural gas. And I think, we all grew up with natural gas. And we take it for granted, but, more and more studies are coming out in terms of the negative impacts, even with a gas stove, which I'm very used to. Be hard to get rid of. I should get rid of it. I should move to an induction stove, but so air quality is high. I also in my mid-50s out of nowhere developed allergies. And to be quite honest, I always thought, oh, what's the big deal with allergies? Yes, you sniffle a bit or whatever. Well, my allergies were actually, I never had like watery eyes, or I didn't sneeze. I just had post-nasal drip. Fast forward 10 years later, I'm in an operating room. I developed severe sinus issues to the point where, and it took them a while, about a year and a half to figure it out. I would have quite debilitating on a daily basis, multiple times a day, really nasty facial pain. I mean, if I was giving this presentation, I would stop in mid-sentence because I would be in so much pain. And finally, they figured out, it took a year and a half to figure it out. It was sinus issues. And I had sinus surgery and I was fine the next day. So allergies, air quality, allergies, they can be real serious. I have an appreciation for that. Added value when I resell the house, although to be honest, this is probably my last house of my life. So I am not terribly excited because either A, I'll be dead, or B, I'll be in a nursing home, and my intention is to be in the house. So resale value for me, at least, is not high on the list. Leaving behind, and this might sound, terribly altruistic, but I do get a lot of satisfaction that I will leave behind an environmentally sound house, unless the new owner is crazy. New owners come in and they do crazy things, but the thought that a new owner will rip out insulation that's buried in the walls, I highly doubt it. So, this is a very energy efficient, tight house. Lower and more consistent energy bills. Natural gas tends to fluctuate more. If you heat with a heat pump, electrical heat, you have a pretty, if it goes up, it might go up a little bit every year, but it's fairly consistent. You don't have the really wild swings that you have with natural gas. And finally, and I saved the best for last, I guess, is my concern about climate change. I really wish I knew what the formula is to get people's attention. I think as a species, we're hardwired that, if there's a raging conflagration, but it's 10 miles away, we're yawning. 5 miles away, we're still probably yawning. Next door, it gets our attention. But I am on a number of listservs, so not a day passes where I read some article about what's happening around the world. So this morning, and I also read the Post online every day just to keep on top of what's happening locally in my community. And I get the highlights in the New York Times. So this morning in the Post Standard, there was an article, ice shelf collapse in previously stable East Antarctic. So this is an ice shelf the size of New York City, about, 460 square miles or whatever. And this was actually in the Arctic. This wasn't on anybody's radar screen. They thought the Arctic was really stable. And this ice shelf just up and collapsed. This is an ice shelf that's been around thousands of years. And if you understand the science, the ice shelf in itself will not add to sea level rise, but it's sort of like a cork in the bottle. You pull out the cork, and then the glaciers behind it, they will move quicker into the ocean and contribute to sea level rise. 2 days ago, and this got my attention, I read an article, climate change will make spring hell for Northeast allergy sufferers. That would be me. My allergies have gotten much better, to be honest, because of allergy shots. But I have a real appreciation of how serious allergies can be for people. Month ago, drought in American West. It's the worst since Charlemagne. So if you're a history buff, they're saying like in the last 1,200 years, the West the northwest is experiencing the worst drought in the last 1,200 years. And Lake Mead has dropped about 150 feet. If it drops another 30 feet, and if the drought continues, it probably will, it'll stop electrical production for 5 million people in the West. Oh, I could sort of go on and on, but you know, you get the picture. Oh, one more thing, I guess. The forest fires. Since the year 2000, which is only 22 years ago, not that long ago, US fires are 4 times larger. You know, they now talk about mega fires, which I think is 100,000 acres or more. 4 times larger and 3 times more frequent since the year 2000. You know, we're getting so many signs. We really need to. So that's what motivates me. At the end of the day, it's really climate change which is driving me. Let me introduce Mike Grabowski from Breathe Easy. Mike is the company. Breathe Easy is the company that installed my heat pump. I tend to be somewhat slow and methodical and do a lot of research. So I got it, you know, I got a few quotes, and you know, and it wasn't that Breathe Easy was the lowest quote, because I just really liked them. And I also ask a lot of questions, and Mike was just wonderful to work with. So Mike, say a few words about yourself and Breathe Easy.
Thank you. I've been in the industry since the early 2000s. Breathe Easy is a family-owned company. I work for them. I'm a comfort advisor for them. They've been doing air conditioning and heat pumps since the early 2000s. And we're part of the Clean Heat program. We're part of the NYSERDA program, and several other programs that are out there that are supported by state funds and federal funds. Kind of rounds it all up.
I mean, he's delightful to work with. I mean, I've asked my questions, you know, 6 months, 9 months, a year down the line. And he's always great. He's really good to work with.
Yeah, send me an email, go on our website, send an email. I'll be more than glad to answer any questions. And if I don't have the answers, I'll definitely dig into it to find out the answer for you.
And Lindsay, Mike, Breathe Easy is also now one of the companies which I guess has been vetted by HeatSmart and is now part of the HeatSmart team.
Yes, so Breathe Easy is one of the companies that people can pick when they enroll with HeatSmart CNY. So yep,
okay.
We had a lot of good recommendations from a lot of people who were part of the HeatSmart campaign and ended up choosing Breathe Easy outside of the campaign. And we said, well, that seems to be a really good recommendation. We will bring them in.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure what. So now we're going to start the tour.
Yeah. So now let's talk. Well, let's tell people what you've done to the house. Let's start with that, and then let's go for a tour and see what it's been done.
Well, let me use sort of. I mean, because I could. If I told you everything I did to the house, there'd be no time for Q&A. So I mean, basically, I added solar to the roof. Starting 10 years ago. And one of the things I want to emphasize is I would not recommend doing it the way I did it. I mean, for example, when we go outside and we pan up to the roof, you're going to notice solar panels of different configurations. On the front end, I did not have the vision that I have today in terms of an electric vehicle, and in turn, I wasn't thinking electric heat pumps, etc. So, you know, I added capacity. And when I say it's not the worth to do it, it would have been less expensive if I had said, "Ooh, let's install," I forget what the number is right now, 28 panels, you know, as opposed to, you know, 18 and adding 3 and adding 3 more and then adding another 8 more. So, you know, solar. I have done a lot of insulating to the house. So all the windows have been replaced. Maybe it took over 8 years, I guess. You know, I grew up, my dad had, you know, natural wood in our home, and I guess I developed an affinity. So when I moved into, you know, Jane's home, Jane's first husband died, and I moved, you know, we got together, moved in 18 years ago. Everything was white painted pine. And today, everything, literally every piece of molding in the house is natural oak. And that enabled me to air seal things, to insulate, etc. So all the windows are new. Pretty much room by room, we tightened it up, replaced windows, added maybe 2 years ago, 2.5, a heat pump, electric heat pump. Prior to that, I added a ERV, an energy recovery ventilator, which I'll show you downstairs and explain why we did that. We have we started to do the research on a level 2 charger because we have an order for a RAV4 Prime, which is an electric. It's a plug-in hybrid, so there'll be 40 miles capacity on electric. So hopefully all of our local driving will be electric. And I wanted to install a charging system in it. I also did things like replace some of the, we had 2 ceiling fans, and I learned about ECM motors. So we replaced those fans because we didn't have air conditioning, and which we now do, by the way, because of a heat pump. It's a little bit of a misnomer. It's heat and cooling. But so I looked at any appliance that we have in the house. I checked the wattage and see if I can get something that's better and uses less electricity. So the 2 fans that 2 ceiling fans that we had in the house, which we relied on for cooling because we didn't have air, they had ECM motors, so they were A, twice as powerful, and B, they used 1/5 of the wattage. So the old one used 100 watts. The new one, which was twice as powerful, used 20 watts. I think generically, and all sorts of insulating projects. Below grade insulation, checking leaks to the foundation. Before I backfilled, I put in 2 inches of foam board and replacing windows that were single pane glass exterior with double pane. So that, that's without getting into all of the little things, sort of generically insulating, heat pumps, solar. That's sort of the package of what I did. I'm at a point now where I'm actually, this summer I will probably strip off shakes on one side of the building and check the insulation in the cavities, and then put a thermal barrier, a thermal break on the 2x4s, and then redo the shingles. I'm good at demo and some of the rough stuff. When it comes to fine carpentry, you don't want to hire me. Let's just leave it like that. Let's see, Lindsay, I think that does it. So why don't we take a look at some of these features, if that's good for everybody? Okay. So Allison, how do we do this?
So Allison, go to wherever Allison is. Oh, wait, Allison is coming back into the room here. Okay.
I don't know where she is.
Okay. You'll be there shortly.
Yes, you.
Hey, Pete, can you turn down the audio on the computer that's right here, just so we don't get feedback when Allison.
Can I? Stay tuned.
Or just go to Allison. The point is we got to keep the phone and the computer away so we don't get feedback loops.
Where is Allison?
Over there.
Oh,
Stand up, walk that way.
Where do I turn down?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Oh, it's fine?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
So we are going to
Let's
switch
move outside.
Let's move outside.
Allison's, and here we go.
Okay, for a bigger screen, are you good with that?
What's that?
Do you want to use my iPad
I
for a
think this is
bigger
okay.
screen? Okay.
Lights.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, why don't you go out? I'm going to make sure the cat doesn't go out.
A little bit of rain.
A little bit of rain.
Oh, there. Yeah, you coming out, Dick? Just make sure the cat doesn't come while you.
Anything you want to say, Mike?
I'm good.
Did you do the work yourself here? Or?
What's that? No, I'm
Okay,
a comfort advisor. I
got
come
it.
in and design and
Cool.
help the customer with the applications and all the paperwork.
Answer a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Allison, let's go down the driveway a bit so people can
See
see.
the panels.
Right.
Mhm.
So if you look up on the roof to the right, it was the original panels I added in 2010. Those, people always ask about the payback period. So those panels paid for themselves in about 9.5 years, which means, and they're guaranteed to be like 90% efficient 25 years from now. So we'll basically get 15 years of free electricity. And the reason I said, you don't want to do it the way I did, I didn't have the vision. So then I added 3 more and then another, let's see, 3 at the top and then 3 far left. And then I added last December, another 8 more. And the reason I added the 8 more is because what I'm trying to do with the house is a concept called net zero, which means we produce all of the power that we actually use in the house. And the only way I'm going to do that is to increase my electrical production or solar production, and also to keep insulating the house. So that's that's the goal. Why don't we take a real quick look inside? In terms of cost, because people always ask about cost. So the original panels, when they were installed, out of pocket was about $6,400. That's after the the federal rebates, the New York State tax rebate, and NYSERDA's grant money. All those rebates and NYSERDA still exist today, but at different levels. So I honestly can't tell you. The last set of panels I had installed were much more expensive, but it's also because they didn't want to hook. The company that originally did my first set of panels is no longer in business. Second company didn't want to use the existing hookup, so they needed, it was more work, was the end of the story. So I guess what I would encourage you to do is think long term, and if you think that you might do something in the future, if you're planning solar, add that capacity in on the front end, because you're going to save yourself money. Let's take a quick look inside, and I need to run inside and open the garage.
Okay.
If you haven't done solar yet and are thinking about a heat pump, what we recommend is that people do the heat pump first. And then once you've got a year of energy use from your heat pump, use that to size the solar that you need. It's the most accurate way to know what size panel system you need.
Oh, just real quickly. So when you get solar, they'll have new meters installed. They'll have a shut-off device installed. One of these meters actually runs backwards, because what happens is in the spring, summer, and fall, we produce more power than we use. It goes like into a bank. You get credit for National Grid. And then in the wintertime, we end up using more power than we produce, and you draw against it. This space here is where the charger for the level 2 charger will go. And one thing, once again, thinking ahead, we had 200 amp service, but the box itself didn't have a lot of capacity. So I upgraded the box because I knew at some point we would put a charger in. And also, if you're going to do a heat pump, if you're having any electrical work done on your box, what is it, Mike? Is it a 60 amp?
Depending on the size of the system, you can go anywhere from 20 to to a 50 amp. Well, actually 60. No, you're right.
Yeah, I think
20
mine is
to a
a 60.
60 amp, depending on the system that you have put in your home.
Okay,
And there could be multiple breakers depending on the system design.
right. So so if you have a 200 amp with a small box and you are having electrical work done in your box, probably that's the time to say, okay, you know, upgrade the box so you at least have more slots or whatever these things are called.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You can tell I'm the technical guy, slots. So let's go around the side of the house. We'll go back to the heat pump. So this is where I veer a little bit off from the heat smart part. Environmentally, this is a 40 by 40 vegetable garden. You know, we grow like 200 garlic plants a year. We grow a lot of our own vegetables. We shred all the leaves from the property, work them into the soil. Part of the environmental. So this is what Mike's company put in. It's Bosch. My grandparents came from Germany, so I love my Bosch. Our bedrooms are right above it. And I can tell you this, it's very quiet. When it was first installed, yes, I could tell when it went on, because this is basically the compressor unit. And I'm gonna tell Mike, if I'm saying anything that's incorrect, you should just jump in.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, so this is the compressor. But I think within a month or so, you know, any new noise you hear, but then it was like background noise. And I would, you know, and this is not just to promote heat pumps. I honestly do not hear it. Now, I think Bosch, I don't know, Bosch is, well, in the material that they put out, they talk about the decibel level and how low it is, etc.
Yeah.
I don't know if all of them are as quiet as these units.
Not all manufacturers are, but most of your heat pumps, because they're a higher what they call SEER rating, and that's the efficiency rating. Most of them have a much lower decibel rating than your standard air conditioning or standard heating system. So, but in general, the higher end systems like this particular Bosch system are going to be what they call whisper quiet.
Yeah, and I would, like I said, I don't hear it when it turns on. So it's a little T. Allison, if you could, there's lines back there with, I guess, the coolant or the liquid or whatever, which run into under our back unheated porch, enclosed porch, and then they just go into our furnace room. And I don't know if you can see it, but one of the insulating projects I did was, you know, this is like rough stuff that I can do. That's an above grade, a concrete block wall that I put 2 inches of foam board across the whole thing. Same thing with this. I insulated the floor, even though it's an unheated room. So this can be slippery, folks.
And so what's happening is the air source heat pump is basically pulling energy from the air outside.
We had the house dense packed with cellulose.
Okay.
So they pop off a shake, drill through the sheathing, and then they under pressure, that's why it's called dense packed, they put in cellulose. I don't know if that's the best thing, to be honest. I don't know if foam is better. Dick is going. Dick is shaking.
You want to say something, Dick?
Did I do something right, Dick? Is it cellulose? Yes. Okay. So I did something right. I got lucky on that one. So the whole house is dense packed with cellulose, and there is some fiberglass in the walls. So let's go inside. So just real quickly, one of the things I think aesthetics, and I also think insulation. So we had this sliding door replaced. All of the windows are Marvin, and they're very energy efficient. However, I found that Anderson, actually, the Anderson sliding doors had is it a U value, I guess, for windows? Bottom line is they were more energy efficient. So I thought to myself, since that's going to be taken out anyway, and friends said you're crazy, I decided that I would try and take off the knotty pine paneling or the knotty pine boards. So I was able to, I probably broke 2 or 3 in the process, but I took them all off, and I was able to create what's called a thermal break. So under those boards, there's, I think it's 1.5 inches of foam board running across the whole wall here. And then I had this carpenter, Rocco, that I work, he installed all the windows in the house. He's really, really good. He's great to work with, etc. Rocco reinstalled the knotty pine paneling. So even today, I can't tell you which boards are new because I did the restaining and then he installed it. So I would encourage you when you're doing a project around your house, you know, along with aesthetics and whatever other reason you're doing it, see if you can also upgrade the insulation.
Mhm.
Which brings us to the kitchen. So Jane has lived in this house, what do we figure, 28 years? So I thought the old kitchen was fine, but Jane wanted a new kitchen. So there's a saying, happy wife, happy life. So I said two preconditions. We had to recycle everything. So all of the cabinets, some of the cabinets went to a friend because these were good oak. I thought the cabinets were fine. And then the rest of the cabinets went to the Reuse It, which is, it's on the west side. It's where the Habitat Humanity store. So all of the cabinets, all of the trim molding, I think the only thing, the old sink, the light fixtures that were taken out, we were able to recycle all of them. And actually, it's the same thing, all of the trim molding, which is now oak. If Allison pans around, you notice it's oak. It's natural oak everywhere. That was all white painted pine trim, and all of that was taken down to the Reuse It store. So as much as possible, the lighting is all LED. The lighting under the cabinets actually is DC lighting, which is a lower wattage. You know, the can lights, these are also LEDs. The the microwave, without getting into long stories, inverted technology. And inverted technology is more energy efficient. If at all possible, you know, if I'm upgrading an appliance, I try and get something that's more energy efficient. Jane wanted a refrigerator that the freezer was on the bottom because she's tall. And so I had to bend on the refrigerator because the minute you take your compressor and you put it on the bottom, I don't know the technology why, but you ends up using more electricity. But otherwise, everything in here, I would say, is probably less wattage than before. And I didn't show you as we came in, there's a ceiling fan in the room outside. Same thing, that we replaced. The old one used, I think, 100 watts, and the new one uses 20 watts. Let's go downstairs to look at some of the mechanicals. Allison, if you can just, for 1 second, this room, let me turn the lights on, get a little bit of lighting in here. Oop, I guess this is the best light. So this room it's actually quite nice. And this is what I'm contemplating, but so that's an exterior wall. And where the fireplace is an exterior wall. The only way I can insulate that is to take off all the paneling. And this is probably the last room in the house that we haven't torn apart and put it back together. And the same thing, this floor, it's a concrete pad underneath it. And the only way I can insulate, the rug is probably 30 years old. The only way to insulate it is to take it all up, take it all apart, demo the whole thing. And we're thinking, I'm thinking about doing it. We did that with this room, which is an office, and I still have tools from the laundry room, which we did over the winter time. This room here, there was a problem with water coming in that corner, which had rotted some of the paneling. So I finally said, I'm going to demo the whole room. So there's 2 inches of foam board behind those walls. And the same thing as you step up, this floor also has I think 2 inches of foam underneath it. So Mike's got to come in here because we're going to get to the heat pump.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, go on. You got to get in there too, Allison. So,
I'll slide this.
so this is a really small furnace room. So this is heat pump, I believe,
Yes.
Mike,
Yeah,
right?
that's part of the heat pump.
So the coil, I guess, is in here. And the bottom part is the gas furnace. And so the cold air return comes here. This is actually a fairly high-end, this is a filter.
Electronic filter, actually.
Goes into the furnace. So I can explain a little bit more upstairs, but with a heat pump, you can set the temperature. So the heat pump is my primary system down to 25 degrees. 24 and below, my gas furnace kicks in. And what I'm trying to do is to produce enough electricity to run the heat pump without using any electricity from National Grid. It gets a little complicated because these last 8 panels I just had installed the latter part of December. So I really won't know what they produce until I go through a cycle of a spring and a summer and a fall. And a lot of heat pumps have electrical resistance backup heat because they're designed to work down to 5 below zero, is it, Mike?
Actually, some of them are designed to work as low as negative 13 degrees.
Okay, so they can eat for climate, in the Northeast here in Syracuse, these days, it's really rare to get, 13 below zero.
Yep.
So, you could heat your home with a air source heat pump right now if you wanted. But, as you can see, it fits in a very small space. And this is the ERV, which Lindsay actually asked me to open. So an ERV stands for an energy recovery ventilator. And Breathe Easy also installed this. So let me tell you the why first if I had this installed. So my house, most homes exchange the air because they're so leaky. This house, because of all the things I've done over the years, is exceptionally tight. So you get to a point where you really want to bring in fresh air. So it's called an energy recovery ventilator because what happens is the warm, stale air ends up crossing the cool, fresh air that's coming in. And the stale air preheats and you recover some of the energy that you're losing, the cool air that's coming in. And this is how it looks. So the air, it crisscrosses.
Allison, can you focus on the ERV? Yeah, cool.
These are filters. You clean them once a year, very easy to do. Or every 6 months, I guess. And this, I believe, you're also supposed to clean periodically, Mike?
Once a
Yes.
year, yeah.
Yeah. it's simple technology.
So
It
Pete,
gets a little bit complicated. This is why you want to make sure you have a company that really knows what it's doing, because I guess you need to balance. Is that the term,
Yeah,
balance?
that's a good term, yes.
The what is it?
The
The
incoming
pressure.
and outcoming air, and make sure that you have so many air changes per hour, depending on what the actual house needs. And being that your house was so tight, the balance was really important.
Right.
You did also add this device here, the Halo product.
Oh,
That
Thank
that
you.
is another product for.
why don't you describe that, Mike?
Okay.
See, this little thing up here is, let's see, Allison, if you want to switch back, I don't know, that little, I don't know if you can actually see that little, that goes into the plenum.
Yes.
Okay. And then also, this is the second generation, so I can tell you the second generation is more energy efficient, with LED lighting, and it only turns on when your blower is being activated. So now you can explain what it does, Mike.
What it's doing is it's doing two things. It's sending a hydrogen peroxide molecule into the air that actually is killing all your bacteria. It has been tested against COVID. And it also has a UV light in it. Being that the hydrogen peroxide molecules are created when the unit is turned on, the blower turns on the furnace or the heat pump. This is actually blowing those molecules throughout the whole house and attaching themselves to the bacteria and other airborne germs and dust mites and everything else. It makes them larger. Now when they are sucked back in from your return air, which Peter has a high-end electronic filter, it catches them in the filter because they're a bigger molecule and it can't get past it. And you get fresher and cleaner air. So he not only is bringing air from the outside, but he's purifying it through the system, and then has another system to even catch the stuff that's just floating around in the house. And when houses are as tight as Peter's, all that is very, very important.
One other thing, it's a little bit of an aside, but Allison, if you could. So this up here is really simply, it's called a recirculation pump. So when we would turn on the water in the sink, to get hot water, we would have to wait 2 or 3 minutes. And it always sort of bothered me that, all that water was just going down the drain. I mean, I realize in central New York, we have the Finger Lakes, we have trillions of gallons of water. But I took a tour of the sewage treatment plant probably a decade ago. And one of the facts that the gentleman giving the tour said is that the sewage treatment plant uses 50% of the electrical budget for the county. And I said, you're kidding me, 50%? I said, why? And he said, well, think about it. They pump millions of gallons of water every second, 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. So every drop of clean water that was cold until we were ready to get the hot water that was going down the drain, the sewage treatment plant is purifying, even though they don't have to, they're pumping it. And so when I turn on water, I think of water as like electrical. It's electrical consumption. And without even getting into, the other side of the coin is the water comes from Skinny Atlas. Well, actually, if you're in the city, your water comes from Skinny Atlas Lake. I forget where our water comes from out here. But, it gets filtered, etc. It gets processed to be clean. There is an electrical component to getting water. And then in the other end, you treat the water. So what this does is the recirc pump, there's a little thermocoupler valve in there, which is a temperature valve. So it recirculates the water back to my my water heater, which is a tankless hot water heater, until it's warm, and then it goes on. So when we turn the faucet on now, within like 2 seconds, we're getting hot water. And, according to the company, and it's probably a high number, they estimate that an average family will save like 12,000 gallons of water a year. So, so that I actually had that installed, I think, about 4 weeks ago. So nothing to do with heat smart, but an environmental feature. Let's see, Allison, I'll let you out.
Mike, is there anything else you want to point out while you're down there about the system?
Mike, is there anything?
Sure, I can kind of go over it. The way the dual fuel system works is you have a temperature setting on the heat pump so that, let me slide over here, so that it will shut off at a certain temperature. And depending on the house and the insulation level and the air tightness of the house, you can run this particular Bosch system down to -4 degrees. Obviously, as you go lower in temperature, the output of the heat pump is less. So that's why the dual fuel comes into play on a system like this. They do have systems similar to this that instead of gas would run off electric. So when you went down to a certain temperature, if the heat pump could not keep up, then the electric resistance heat would kick on in the system.
Which my system does not have,
No.
because I have gas as my backup.
And right now, because of gas pricing, if you're on natural gas, the cost to run a backup, an emergency backup, we call it, for natural gas versus electric is much cheaper. But if you have solar like Peter, then there's a lot of different options.
The other thing too about heat pumps are 200% more efficient, I believe, than natural gas, Mike?
Yeah, your natural gas furnace is about 96%.
Right.
Your heat pumps can be anywhere from 200 and higher as far as efficiency goes. Again, the maintenance of no matter what type of system is really, really important to keep the efficiency on it. Yearly maintenance of filter changes, tune-ups, checking the equipment, just to make sure everything is running properly, because that's the minute it stops running correctly, your efficiency greatly drops. I think that's about it.
I mean, one other thing, once the inverted technology, which I mentioned in the microwave, heat pumps also have inverted technology, which means it can modulate, like, what is it, 1% at a time? Or
yeah, I don't know the exact percentages, but it does. It's kind of like a cruise control on a car. So on your old technology, your furnaces and even air conditioning, when you turn it on, it's giving you everything you have, similar to like a light switch in a house. If you had one light switch, that switch on all the lights in the house, everything would come on. That's how the older technology works. And the newer technology, it's kind of like cruise control on a car. You're only getting enough to maintain that speed or temperature.
okay, we'll keep on moving. Right. Yeah.
Okay, we'll switch back over to the other screen. Feel free to put questions in the chat. We'll be doing Q&A soon. Allison, we can't hear you still. There you go.
Just in terms of, the windows, these were initially crank out vertical Anderson windows when I moved in. So now they're all, double paned, argon gas filled. It's along the theme of, thinking long-term. If I had to do it today, I would definitely consider triple pane windows. If I had to do it over, I'd probably do triple pane today. There are things called indies, inner windows, etc. So I can still up the efficiency of them, but my biggest heat loss in the house right now is through all the windows in the house. There's a building on 480 Salina Street, I think it's called the Whitlock Building. It's a building on Salina. It's what they call a dual use building. It's 26 commercial apartments 26 residential apartments and 24,000 feet of commercial space. When that building was rehabbed, they put triple pane glass windows in it and highly insulated, et cetera. No, took out the gas meter. It's all electric building, and there's a planned 50K solar PV system for the roof. They're trying to actually also hit like net zero status. They won't know for a year until you crunch all the numbers to see how much the PV system produces and how much the building uses. But, I toured that building, and I must admit I had envy about the triple pane windows. So you do want to think, long term. That's all I could say.
And Pete, you had some numbers you wanted to share, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think I've covered the highlights. I'm quickly looking at my notes. I don't hear any sounds of people sleeping yet, so that's good. I don't hear any sounds of snoring.
Pete.
So let's see, people love numbers and people love costs, etc. So my electric bill every month is $17. And I do not see the sheet where I figured out my gas bill for the last 12 months. But I think the figure I came up with is approximately, that's $17, by the way. We produce 100% of our power. So that's what they call the hookup fee. Now, some people might say you're getting ripped off. You produce all your power. Well, I'm fine with it because we do need a grid. And we should all pay, our share for the grid. So I'm fine with that. On the gas side, I think the figure I arrived at was about $73 per month is my gas bill. And the basic fee for gas is about $23 a month. So I'm using about $50 worth of gas per month.
In the winter months.
Well, no, for the whole year, if you average everything out, summer and winter.
And that's for heating, water.
That's for heating, hot water, and stove. Right. We didn't go into the laundry room. I have is a gas tankless hot water heater. Today I would definitely consider putting in a electric heat pump hot water heater. There's rebates for them, etc. But when I switched over to the tankless, if you think about it, America, we're crazy. We heat 40 gallons of water 24 hours a day. And and what do you use hot water for? Maybe 30 minutes a day. But we keep it hot 24 hours a day. So I went to a tankless system, tankless on demand. So when you turn the water on, it runs through, it's high intensity gas burner, heats it up, etc. Tankless hot water heaters with heat pumps, electric. If they existed, I wasn't aware of it, when I made that decision to do the gas. Otherwise, numbers, in terms of, I don't think there's any, oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, I was right, $73 and $23 of that is that's my average monthly cost for gas for heating, hot water, and cooking. I think I've pretty much hit. Oh, wait a second, the props, how could I forget? Okay, so if you look at, no, I'm not gonna hit Mike. If you look at your baseboard, at the bottom of your baseboard, there's a piece of molding called shoe molding. So you take this, if you're really careful, you can pry up the shoe molding. Because when they built the house in the 60s, the sheetrock came down here and the floor was here and there's a gap. I guarantee it. And you should foam. I foamed room by room, that gap all around. And then, I also wanted to put in new oak trim, etc. So I carefully pulled the nails out of the back and then took all the trim molding over the years down to the reuse it store. But you could just, you could reuse your shoe molding. You just carefully pry it off. You get a tube of cork or you get a foam and you just foam it and then just put it back. So these are, you can do this. I know you, if I can do it, you can do this. Because I am not the sharpest tool in the shop. Trust me. Let's see, Lindsay, are we?
Yep, so we've got some questions lined up. One of
Okay.
them is, what are the tax incentives and rebates for installing a heat pump? So I'll just talk about that really quickly. So there's a number of different pieces that are available and the different incentives. And if I'm going to mention a bunch of them, we have it all written down on the Heat Smart CNY website under incentives. So feel free to go check it out there. The main incentive for heat pumps is through the utilities. So if you're on NYSEG, RG&E, National Grid, there's the New York State Clean Heat Program, and the contractors basically apply to these programs on your behalf. They'll design the systems that will meet the goals of the program and meet their criteria. And so they are really prioritizing whole home systems for heat pumps. They want the heat pump to be able to carry the whole heating load of the house. And so for air source heat pumps, it's $1,000 per 10,000 BTU hours of heating. And then for geothermal heat pumps, it's $1,500 per 10,000 BTU hours. And there's a $700 rebate for heat pump water heaters. There's also a federal tax credit for geothermal systems, 26% through the end of this year. Next year, it drops down to 22%. So this is a good year to try to get geothermal in if you can. There's also, for people, if you know people who are on HEAP, there is a program specifically for HEAP recipients right now. They have to have been a HEAP recipient this year that will pay up to $20,000 towards heat pumps if the house is well insulated. If it's not well insulated, then the money will go towards insulation. But that's a really big help to the lower to moderate income households in our communities. So that's some of the rebates and incentives available. There's other little pockets of money, but those are the main ones that apply to everyone. And so from there, we'll go on to the questions. Can you have zones for the heat pump?
Yes, you can. A ductless heat pump would have separate units in every room. So that actually is its own zoning system. If you had a central ducted heat pump, it would be the same as a central ducted furnace. It would work off those zones, or we have zone products that can be put into the system that it can be zoned as long as we can get to the ductwork so that we can control the rooms that you want to zone.
And to just add into onto what Mike said, I mean, my system, so brand new, when they gave me a quote, my gas furnace was high efficiency. It wasn't that old. I think it was about 12 years, but the model that we had installed 12 years ago apparently had some issues with it. So, Mike's company recommended that I also, replace the gas furnace at the time. So I got a brand new high efficiency gas furnace and a heat pump. And after all the rebates, et cetera, I think out of pocket, the figure that we arrived at was $7,100, I think, from the case study we did. I think there might have been another rebate of $400 or $500 from National Grid, but so somewhere say between $6,500 and $7,100 for a heat pump and a gas furnace. And in terms of, so, as Mike, and the other types of system, Mike, I believe are much more expensive.
Yeah.
I believe they are. Is that?
Well, yeah, and you have to balance it out because Peter's house is very unique with all the insulation, air sealing that he has done. And that's really the key of these air source heat pumps. is to be able to put a smaller system in that can handle the heating and cooling of the house. With what Peter has done to the house and his air leakage, or how tight his house is, we were able to put a system in that could accommodate the heating load for his house in the coldest days. I was just looking at the thermostat a few minutes ago. It's set at 61 degrees, the thermostat is, but the house temperature reads 67 degrees. And that's hasn't changed, nothing's come on. It's been constant ever since we were here. So the insulation is a truly an important insulation, and air sealing is truly an important factor of this whole equation,
Yeah,
along with the design.
we normally set it at 67. I think so. When we go to bed, we do turn it down to 61, and this might get a little, I don't know, in the weeds, but our system, at least, was the default was anything more than a 3-degree difference. So like, say it's set at 67, and say at night we turn it down to 61. And then in the morning we get up and we put it up to 67. So that's, that's what, 6-degree difference. The default was 3 degrees, which meant that it went into emergency heat mode, which means my gas furnace kicked on. I mean, the first winter I had it installed, I'm not getting much, my gas consumption isn't going down. I couldn't figure it out. And then we finally realized I was kicking in the emergency heat. So I called up the 800 number, and it was interesting because I realized I was like on the cutting edge of questions, because the tech people had to like talk to each other. And then I actually educated Mike about something. And I was able to change that default setting. I think with my particular model, and I don't know whether it's the heat pump or the thermostat, but bottom line is I think I was able to change it up to a 10-degree difference. So during the day is 67, we go to sleep, we turn it down to 61. Some nights the house doesn't fall down to 61. It all depends on if it's like 20 degrees outside or whatever, by the time we wake up in the morning, the house is 61. So when I turn it up now to 67, that's only 6 degrees. It does take a bit longer with a heat pump to warm your house up. And I realize, we're Americans, we're used to instant everything. So there is more of a lag time to heat the house in the morning. So if you get a heat pump and you do turn your heating down at night, you want to make sure you check about the default setting. That is important.
The other equation that I keep on trying to teach Peter, but he keeps on wanting to turn that thermostat down.
Yeah, I'm hardwired. I'm sorry, Mike.
That's all right. On these heat pump systems, you want to keep the temperature, find a temperature that you're comfortable with all the time, and set it and leave it. Now, there's several customers that we come up, projects that we do that are just like Peter, want that temperature turned up and down. And Peter was able to come up with a solution for that with the manufacturer's help, our support, and his own help. That works for him. But the idea of the heat pump is if you can keep it at one temperature and just leave it at that, let the heat pump do its own thing, it will be the most efficient that you can get out of the system.
One of the things that in regard to the question about zone heating, et cetera, every register, at least all the registers in my house, you can close it. So, like our laundry room, we don't direct heat to the laundry room. It's not really, I guess that's sort of like a mini way of having zone heating. It's not as effective as true zone heating, but you can direct, the more heat we direct into the main living area where our thermostat is, even if the laundry room is 40 and up here at 67, that's fine. So that's a way you can do a little bit of zone heating with, still having like a ducted system.
Next question is, what are the limiting factors for lowest temperature that a heat pump will work?
The manufacturer actually, and the design temperature that the system is designed at, and the design temperature that your manual J is used. So it's kind of a tough question to answer because it's kind of, there's a lot to it. The heating systems are designed, depending on the manufacturer, most of your cold climate systems are designed to work anywhere from -4 down to -13. But at a certain temperature, the output is less than 100%. And when you drop below that 100% output, then the efficiency rating drastically drops, or you have to have some kind of backup heat to compensate for the loss because it's not maintaining the heat load for the house. Maybe if there's a little bit more, I probably didn't answer the question directly, but if they can give us a little bit more insight of what they're looking for, then maybe I can answer it a little more directly.
Sure. Don't see the follow-up quite yet, so I'll wait.
Okay.
What is the total number of solar panels that you ended up putting on your roof?
Okay, let's see. Let me do the math. 8, 6, 14. The original system. 14. I think I have 30 now, and it's around a 7. Ooh, I don't know, 7 and change system. So also with the solar panels, if you dial it back 10 years ago, like state of the art was, I don't know, like 250 watts per panel. And so the newer ones, which are the same size, because, you know, the technology changes. So each year, the panels, the same size panel went up a few watts in efficiency. So I think I'd have to check the ones I had installed like in December, I think were 320 versus maybe 255 10 years ago.
Cool.
So you get more wattage for the same amount of space.
So the follow-up question on that one is, what's your max and average electric production?
Well, you know, I honestly don't know how to answer that because say it again, average and max.
Yeah, what's your maximum?
Okay. Now, if I was an energy geek, because your system is monitored with a router, you know, on the web. So if I was a real geek, trust me, this you can track it daily. You can track it all sorts. So I could answer that question. The data is on my router. I honestly don't know. I couldn't tell you. I mean, it also depends, like, you know, and so in the wintertime, because you have snow on the panels and these panels are black. So yes, it eventually, they heat up and the snow slides off. And I don't have a great angle on my roof, but even on my roof, it eventually slides off. So snow will shut them down. It's in the wintertime, the angle of the sun affects your production. And you also have more cloudy days in the wintertime. That's why winter production is less than spring, summer, fall. So, you know, once again, if you're probably the maximum production will be the day in the I don't know, I guess the summertime where there's zero clouds and it's just, you know, cranking. To use a really scientific term, it's cranking. I don't know. But yes, if you have a system, you could check it every day and you could find out that answer.
What was the air cleaner add-on system?
Well, okay, so
I think they might just be looking for the name.
Well, there's April. So the air cleaner that I had with my gas furnace is April Air, and that was installed with the first generation furnace. So when Mike's company put the new gas furnace in, I said, keep the old air cleaner because it's fairly high end.
No, it is high end.
It is
Yeah.
high end. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has a filter with a MERV rating of I think around 13. And it also has wires in it that create an electrostatic charge, and the charged particles are more likely to be captured by the filter. So I don't know if the person is referring to that, and that's April Air. And the ERV, what's the company? Oh, it's Brown.
Yeah.
Brown.
They might be talking about the Remy Halo.
Well, there's three things. So there's the April air filter, which I just described. Then there's the ERV, which is Brown, BROAN. And then there's also that add-on unit, the Halo.
Remy Halo.
Remy,
REME. Remy.
REME.
Halo.
Halo, HALO.
And
So if you Google that,
yeah,
it'll pop up.
yeah, it's a Remy Halo LED.
Yes, yeah, LED, and that's the second year. You can still get the first generation. The second generation was more energy efficient. So for me, it was a little bit of a no-brainer. And I would say this. I mean, I tried to, let's see, how do I say this? I mean, the company's trying to sell a product. So I always think buyer beware. I tried to do some research on the technology in terms of the efficiency or the effectiveness in killing viruses, et cetera. And, as far as I could find, it seemed to be legit. I can't swear that it works. Sorry, Mike.
No, if you Google Remy Halo and go on their website,
Right.
There's tons of scientific data that
Yes.
will back up everything. They're a great company. You can actually call
Yeah,
them.
it's used in hospitals.
Yeah.
I think the military uses it or whatever. So I think it's
The technology.
technology.
Been around for a long
Right.
time.
And to be transparent and honest, that I think it was $1,000,
Something like that.
something like that. And I thought, with COVID around, I'm fortunate enough to be able to, to spend $1,000 on an item like that. I figured, I have people in my home. I figured it reduces the chance of viruses for everybody. And anyway, I pulled the trigger and did it.
You did a lot of research before, though.
I did a lot of research. That's my nature,
Mhm.
and you can drive yourself crazy. With the internet, it's endless. So at some point you just have to say enough is enough and make a decision.
Okay. Next question is, what's the square footage that you heat?
The house is approximately 2,000 square feet. Now, I don't, that's what it says on it's 2,050 to be exact, is what our tax records say. And I never know if that includes the family room, I think was down there from day one. So I assume that's included in the square footage.
Supposed to be living area, but it depends. You have to read the.
Yeah,
out of it.
so it could be 2,050 square feet plus the family room downstairs, or 2,050 feet, including it, because I think that when the house was built, that room was, framed out, finished, etc.
If you have a gas furnace currently, can a heat pump be added on?
That's exactly what I did.
Well,
Yeah.
let
Usually-
Mike, yeah.
Yeah, Mike, I don't know if you had like a 30-year-old gas furnace, could you still add a heat pump?
Yes, you can add a heat pump to any furnace. Again, the question is the heat pump, just like a furnace, should be designed to carry the full load of the house. Now, if you're not concerned about carrying the full heating load of the house, then you can add a heat pump to the furnace. With your central ducted heat pumps that are added to a furnace, you have to really look at what the heat load for the house is. So the contractor, us or another contractor that you choose, needs to do the manual J, needs to do a design system build to find out exactly can the ductwork handle it? Can the house, what is the load that the heating load that the house requires to heat it on the coldest of winter days? So yes, the bottom answer for that question is yes, it can be added to any furnace, but there are some restrictions if you want to truly use it for heating the whole house.
And this is not just to like promote Mike's business. And truth be told, I think he's a really great guy and I like him.
Thank you.
But I would say, I'm of two schools of thought. If you're just killing time, don't call up a contractor and waste their time. But if you think you have any interest whatsoever, get a free estimate. Start to learn about the technology. I'm the vice president of an organization, Climate Change Awareness and Action. So one of our members, this is the classic, his furnace broke down in the wintertime. So he was in a crunch. What did he do? He got another gas furnace, and, I guarantee that's what we, all of us would do if all of a sudden it's, January 10th and your furnace breaks down. You don't have the luxury of doing research. So if you have a working gas furnace and you're concerned at all about climate change and you think you might possibly do it, even if it's a few years down the line, or when your furnace breaks down, make the call now, learn about the technology, get some numbers. Otherwise you'll get another gas furnace.
Right. And I do want to just emphasize to everyone that the best climate solution is going for a full heat pump where you can actually eliminate the gas furnace entirely. Pete won't be able to get to net zero with the gas furnace in his house. But he's taking the intermediary step of being able to reduce his gas use because he has a heat pump. And so that's the reason why we are allowing these through the program, because there's a lot of people on natural gas in the Central New York area. And some of them need to take an intermediary step before they go full heat pumps. And we understand that.
Lindsay is absolutely correct. It's just like with an electric car. I drive a 92 Honda, so it's gas. I've had it for 20 years. I live on another planet. I've never spent more than $4,000 on a car in my whole life. So, I'm like from Mars. So I realize I need to bite the bullet, pay 10 times more than I've ever spent on a car in my whole life. And my next car, I've started looking at electric. Psychologically, it's just like a huge leap for me. But it's a leap I should struggle with, and I should do it because, I can afford an electric car. It's just not, I'm hardwired not to do it because of price.
Okay. There's a question, does Breathe Easy install geothermal? The answer is no, but we do have geothermal installers working with us through HeatSmart CNY, including Halco, ACES Energy, and NP Environmental. You want to talk about what you do, Mike?
Yeah, sure. We do air source heat pumps, whole home, partial loads, gas furnaces, gas hot water tanks, air source hot water tanks, air conditioning, ductwork design. We work with select new contractors for new home builds, remodels. We're involved into the NYSERDA program, obviously the HeatSmart program, Clean Heat. We also are a partner of the NYSERDA program, and we're a home performance company. So when we come in, I'm looking at the house as a whole, not just to put a box in. I'm looking at insulation levels, air leakage levels, health and safety issues. And then we look at the heating equipment to see what's needed to upgrade your home or to meet your comfort needs.
And, I'm glad Mike mentioned air conditioning. Like I said earlier, we never had central air in the house. We would do what I call old school. Get up in the morning, we would close all the windows and we would pull down all the shades. At night, we'd open all the windows and put up all the shades. And by and large, because our house is so well insulated, we would keep it comfortable. Truth be told, there were some days during the summer we were sort of like, miserable. Hot and sticky. And it's like when I grew up in New York before my parents had, an air conditioning unit they stuck in the window. And we survived. So a little discomfort, maybe is not a bad thing. But now we have the ability to cool down. And what we've done, and I thought to myself, great, once I start using this thing, I'll run it 24 hours a day for months on end. We still don't, we're trying to hold the line, but we found out, if the house is really hot and sticky, it's one of those hot 95 humid degree days, we turn it on for a half hour. We cool the house down. And then once again, since our house is so well insulated, it stays cool for a long time, but bottom line is we do have the capability of air conditioning. And even though it's a heat pump.
Do you have a smart thermostat?
Yes, we do. But yeah, we do. I'm embarrassed to say that with a lot of this technology, I don't use it anywhere near its capabilities. So right now we pretty much program it manually, i.e. we, at night, against Mike's advice, we turn it down and then we turn it up in the morning. We don't have it set for, and we could. It is a smart thermostat. That's the short answer.
All right, so James is asking, I currently have central air using an outside compressor tied into my propane central heat system. I plan to add a heat pump. Do I replace my current air conditioner or will it somehow be tied into the heat pump?
Good question.
No, you have a furnace in the house. So we would replace the current air conditioning system with a heat pump system.
And Mike, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is a heat pump air conditioner more efficient than a central air conditioner?
Yeah, his central air conditioner that he has now, I'm assuming it's an older one. It's a single, what they call single stage. Your heat pump systems are modulating. So it's modulating up and down like cruise control on a car. So it's very, very efficient. They rate your heat pump systems and air conditioning systems by SEER. And he's probably has somewhere between a 9 and a 12 SEER. Your new heat pump system for air conditioning would be rated at anywhere from a 16 to a 20 SEER at normal. Again, I want to repeat the fact that when you add central ducted heat pump systems to a home, one, can the ductwork handle the heat pump load and the airflow that's required? And two, is the house well enough air sealed and insulated to handle the lower output of the heat pump on a central ducted system? Several houses that we've seen on average, not like Peter's, aren't like Peter's, I should say, where they would take a central ducted air source heat pump system and maybe a ductless heat pump system in combined to produce enough heat to truly heat the house. If you're just starting and you want to get your feet wet and you want to say, hey, I've got a dual fuel system, then the central ducted heat pump system is a great way to start.
Can a heat pump be added to just heat the upstairs bedrooms and let the gas furnace handle the lower level?
On a central ducted heat pump system, not necessarily, because it utilizes your ductwork. So what you would do is you would utilize a ductless heat pump, where the ductless heat pump would be put into the different rooms or ducted into the second floor in some type of configuration to heat and cool the second floor. And then your first floor could be, you could utilize your furnace.
So if I understood what you said, Mike, you have to change your ductwork a bit then, or no?
Not necessarily. It depends on the situation. The second floor would have its own system, and that can either be a ductless system. We support the Mitsubishi product. You can go right on their website. It's mitsubishi.com, ductless. That has individual heads or air handlers, very small, that are mounted in the room, or if the house lends itself to it, you can put some kind of a ducted system in an attic or another room that can heat and cool the second floor.
You know, Lindsay, one thing also, if I could add, and, you know, I can't imagine, I'm surprised that none of us mentioned to this. Switching from natural gas is also a national, you know, truth be told, I've had a lot of problems with our nation, with our foreign policy from my political perspective over the, you know, I guess ever since I've been on this planet, going back to Vietnam. But saying that, moving away from natural gas does give us more energy independence. I mean, if you follow the situation with Ukraine right now, you know, Europe is sort of like walking on eggshells because they're really dependent on natural gas from Russia. And, you know, if you move to an all electric system, it's creating energy independence. Gives us more flexibility with our foreign policy. You know, Saudi, you know, we don't have to still be nice to the Saudis, you know, when they do some really nasty things. We have to be nice to the Saudis now because we take so much of their oil.
So then we have another question. I'm confused. On one hand, it sounds like a full heat pump can't handle the coldest days efficiently. On the other hand, Lindsay says we should have full heat pumps. Please go over it again. So from a carbon emissions perspective, when you're burning fossil fuels in your house, you are emitting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. With a all electric system like heat pumps, you can power it fully with the solar panels if you have a large enough system, or you're pulling so little amount from the grid that it's still a major, even if you are using the gas-fired power plants to fuel the grid, it still is a major benefit in terms of climate emissions. In terms of operation, cold climate air source heat pumps are rated to go down, and they work as low as 13 degrees below zero. They do lose efficiency after a certain point. And so we have a lot of homes that have gone full heat pump systems, and they'll have an electric resistance backup in the ducted system, or they might just have some little space heaters or something around the house that they can just turn on if we get that whole polar vortex going on. So at those moments, it ends up being less efficient. But over the whole winter time, most of the time our heating is in that 20 to 30 degree range throughout the winter. And the heat pumps handle that extremely efficiently. And so that's where the efficiency savings are.
One more thing that I would add to what Lindsay is saying is that if you think about, so your natural gas furnace at best, so my natural gas furnace is 95%. Or 96, okay. Mm-hmm. Heat pump is 200%. So even if the heat pump is not operating at 100% efficiency, at the end of the day, my heat pump is still more efficient than my natural gas furnace.
Right.
Lindsay, can you repeat that question that we were just answering?
So basically, there's some confusion about whether or not a heat pump can handle the full heating load of a house.
Okay, so let me just answer that real quickly. If the heating pump system is designed at the right design temperature, which is there's a design temperature for every area in New York State. The way we design heat pumps is we take that temperature and we subtract a certain amount of degrees from that temperature. So I'll use for like Syracuse area, this area. The design temperature in this area is like 4 degrees. When we're designing a heat pump system, I try to design it at 0 or lower so that it compensates for the coldest days that we're now experiencing. So the design of that system, the heat output for that system has to be able to keep up with the house's required heating load at those coldest days. So yes, the question is if it's designed properly and the customer truly wants to insulate the house and air seal the house properly, then yes, a heat pump can be a sole source of heat for the house on the coldest of winter days. So you have a couple different the two biggest factors are the way the heat pump is designed, at the temperature it's designed at, and the amount of heat that the house actually holds in. If you have an old house that has a lot of leakage in it with poor insulation, and you have a 100,000 BTU furnace, and you don't want to do any insulation work, then can we design a heat pump for that temperature? Theoretically, we can, but the cost outweighs the savings, because the system would have to be so large, and because you're constantly losing heat out of the house. I hope that explains it a little bit better.
Mhm.
And also heat pumps, Mike, like mine's, heat pumps are furnaces. We're used to the terminology. It's an 80,000 BTU or 60,000 or 120,000. Heat pumps are rated in what, tons, right? Like mine's a 3.5 ton.
Yeah, they're also rated at tonnage. That's correct. And then they're also rated at BTU output at a certain temperature.
Okay, but you can get, just like, size of your furnace, you can get a bigger heat pump. Like you can get like, what is it, up to a 5-ton a heat pump. The Whitlock building, which I mentioned earlier, which, I don't know what the square footage of the building is, but it's 24,000 square feet of commercial space and 26 apartments. That's all heat pump technology. Like I said, they cut the gas meter, got it, capped it. There's no natural gas in that building at all. And I think you folks did the heating for the United Way building.
No.
That wasn't you guys?
No,
Okay.
somebody else.
So I don't know, for what that's worth, that's a big building downtown and it's all heated by heat pumps. Now it's also, go back to what Mike said, it's also an extremely well insulated building when they did the rehab on it.
Were we able to answer that question for the customer, Lindsay?
Mike, do you think that made sense to you? You did have a follow-up question. At what temperature does a heat pump begin to lose efficiency?
It depends on the brand and the model. The Mitsubishi systems are 100% at, I believe, -5 degrees. To give you an example.
-5?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yep.
Wow.
I'm going to put a link in here for anyone who really wants to get into the weeds. Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnership has basically it's the gold standard list of cold climate air source heat pumps, and it goes into all the details of these. It goes into the coefficient of performance at various temperatures, and this is what NYSERDA references in terms of approving heat pumps to be working, to be eligible for the rebates to the utilities.
Yeah, Lindsay, the only downside of that website, it has a ton of information. It can give you an idea for your rebates, but it doesn't actually tell you, like that one customer is asking, how low will they operate it to be 100% efficient.
Sure.
So it gives you a ton of information, but it does not give you that exact information.
Good to know.
I think it goes down to 5 degrees.
Okay, can a heat pump be installed into an attic, or does it need to be outside?
Can they define that a little bit more?
An attic, I mean.
Karen, do you mean having the outdoor unit be put into the attic as the heat exchanger?
No, well, okay, so maybe there's a little confusion. The outside unit that Peter showed is called the condenser. That is the actual, that has to go outside, no matter what brand. There's some form of that outside. And then an air handler or the coil, or I guess it would be an air handler, that can be placed possibly in an attic. But again, if you're placing that particular system in an attic, then you have to kind of take a look at how much loss you're going to get from ductwork, the system. So the attic has to be, again, well insulated or redesigned to handle the heat pump output. But again, I'll kind of go over it. The condenser is always outside. The unit that we kind of viewed on Peter's system, it's called the condenser. And then the unit that we saw in Peter's utility room, there are different versions of that they can be placed in an attic.
Yeah.
It's not optimal, but in some instances, with the right insulation and the right install, it can work very well.
I think I called it the compressor. So it's actually a condenser, Mike? Or is
Well,
that
it's a
the-
compressor.
Oh, it is a
outside.
compressor. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, it's actually the same technology we all have in our refrigerators, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
If your
Been
heating
around
is
a long time.
What was that, Lindsay?
if your heating is gas-fired baseboard, would the heat pump system work?
Yes, fine.
So that would be a boiler, a water or a steam
Mhm.
boiler, I'm
Mhm.
assuming. Then you would want to look at the, a good solution for that would be the ductless heat pump. Again, I'll recommend Mitsubishi. That's a very good brand. You can go on the website. And then there are other brands out there that can be used for that application, where you would actually put different units or heads or small air handlers in the different rooms.
Mhm.
But we've done that. Actually, we just got done with a big project up in the Cleveland area, that a customer had a boiler and kept his boiler system in place, and we put a whole house heat pump system in, and that's been heating his house over the coldest winter days that we've had here.
Great. Are there any best practices for if you do leave a boiler system in place and you have the air source heat pumps, in terms of setting temperature, setting thermostats, things like that, so you don't have, say, the heat pumps trying to cool when the the boiler system's on?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. It's all in your thermostat settings. So if you're trying to, say, in the wintertime, you would either turn the boiler off, or you would set it at the lowest temperature that it can be set at, and then set your thermostats for your heat pump system to a correct to the comfortable settings that you're used to living at. You can also have dual fuel, depending on the type of heat pump you have. You can have a dual fuel thermostat that can work in certain applications. So again, utilizing your boiler to the bare minimum is the best thing to do. And the correct thermostat or thermostat settings would be the best thing to use.
And is there a time frame when the rebates may run out? So I'll take that one.
Could be tomorrow.
Let's see, what time is it now?
I will say that the rebates seem to change all the time, unfortunately. They are relatively stable for the utilities right now, but we did see downstate, Coniston and Orange and Rockland, the utilities down there dramatically reduced their rebates in this past March 1st. NYSEG and National Grid have said that they don't see doing that in the near future, but they do reserve the right to do that, and they would do it either in September or March. So basically, the short version is take advantage of the rebates available to you as they are. Programs seem to change all the time. If people are HEAP eligible, if they are HEAP recipients, that money does have a deadline. It's federal money, and currently there is the systems have to be installed, and the contractors have to send the paperwork into the state by September 30th. there's a lot of effort to extend that, but it hasn't happened yet. So if people are HEAP recipients and want to improve their insulation and want to improve their heating systems, contact the installers right now, because everyone's backed up multiple months already. And let's see here. You mentioned doing the heat pump first before solar panel installation to determine the proper size for solar. How long of a time frame do you suggest? What my recommendation is, if you can do a year, so you get the solar system, or sorry, you get the heat pump set in, and then you get a whole year of your heating load, so you have a good sense of what it's going to take. That gives you the best data. We've also seen there's all the calculations could be done. The solar installers are actually pretty good at making ballpark calculations. So it depends on your own preferences and how fast you want to do it. You will definitely, if you want to just start utilizing the savings from the solar panels immediately, then just get it done almost at the same time. But you know, get the information from the installers about, you know, how much you think you'll need to cover the load.
And Lindsay, one thing in terms of like thinking of the size of your system, you know, like it or not, my guess is 10 years from now, you know, the number of gas vehicles are definitely decreasing every year. So even if you're not planning to buy an electric vehicle, if you do want to charge it from your home, you know, you probably will, whether it's 5 or 10 at the max. I mean, some states have legislation to outlaw gasoline powered cars. And New York City has outlawed new gas infrastructure. Do you know the date when that starts? I mean, there's 2 levels. There's buildings under 7 stories and buildings over, but it's bottom line is I think it's this decade.
Yeah, it's like 2027.
Yes, right. So you know, we're moving away from gas, like it or not. It's and that's a good thing. We should like it.
And that is one of the benefits of doing a dual fuel system like Pete's, is that you basically are future proofing your house, so that, you know, as gas prices get more expensive or as the gas system shrinks, you have a way of heating your house still, and you can choose based on, you know, your own, you know, preferences for how much the climate means to you, you know, balancing finances depending on which fuel is more expensive at the moment. You get to sort of setting the temperature higher or lower. That changeover allows you to control that.
Lindsay, I know Mike has a family event. I'm not sure when exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say it's time to wrap this up.
Technical questions. I mean, I can stay, but if there's more technical questions that Mike could answer, I don't know if you can sort them out from the chat.
Nope, that was actually the end of the questions. So,
okay. Yeah. And if you want to put my email, if people think of questions, or if you want to come over and see my system, you know, I didn't go into all the details on the house, but you know, there's in the interest of time and not getting Lindsay really angry at me. So anyway, if Lindsay, if you want to put my email address in there and people have follow-up questions, if you think of tomorrow, whatever, feel free to shoot me an email.
You can also put my email address in there, Lindsay, if you want to. I'll be more than glad to.
Sure, I can do that.
Okay. I'd like to thank everybody for you know, taking the time out to listen to us. I hope it was helpful and informative.
Right. If you want to see other videos of similar tours, we've got tours for geothermal systems, we've got tours for air source heat pumps. Our YouTube channel, if you search for Heat Smart CNY on YouTube, you'll come up with our whole history of different events like this, and this one will be up there as well. And we also have our Heat Pump 101s up there also. We have another Heat Pump 101 coming up the first Monday in April, and happy to talk more about to people then. And I'll put my information in the chat too. Feel free to reach out to me if you have other questions, or to sign up to have an installer come out. You can also do that on the heatsmartcny.org website.
Lindsay, thank you for setting this up and thank you for all the work you do with Heat Smart. And Mike, thank you for taking time on a Saturday, to come here and answer questions, et cetera.
Well, thank both of you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And thank you to Sustainable Manlius for helping us out. And thank you to Allison Mullen Stout for doing the video work.
Yes, Allison. Let's see, are we at sign off time, Lindsay?
I believe so. I'm just going to put my contact information in the chat for people, and then
Sure.
I think it's about time to go. So,
Can I add a comment while you're doing that? Lynn?
go for it.
In line with what Pete was just talking about, the city of Ithaca has a plan which is now in progress to get the entire city off fossil fuels in 10 years. They are doing it, not city buildings, the whole city.
Yep.
We had a presentation at CNY Solidarity last week, which was great. And we're hoping to move Syracuse and Onondaga County in that direction.
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that, Pete. That's really important. Yeah, other cities are doing it. Syracuse, we can do it.
Ithaca is the first city in the country that's actually made that commitment and put the structure in place to do it. So they're on their way.
Mhm.
Are there funds for residential to support that?
Yeah, they're putting together all kinds of packages from utilities and government and loans and, a lot of solar. The guy that's doing that is, can talk about all those details. It's about $2 billion he's talking about.
With a B, billion.
Oh, okay.
Capital. I mean, they're serious. They're talking about
Yeah.
raising, hundreds of millions, billions of capital, private sector money, public money, et cetera. So they know what they're getting into.
That's good.
The
Yeah.
guy is amazing what he knows about the depth of all these issues. And we're gonna
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Pete. Go ahead.
we're gonna have a recording of that meeting available within a few days if people
Great.
want to see it on the CNY Solidarity website.
Wonderful.
I mean, I'm sure you can appreciate this. They're even thinking about what's the workforce needed to make that happen.
That's phenomenal.
And they realize
Yeah.
that currently the workforce, he was funny. He said, if you know anybody that can turn a wrench. No, they're thinking, I think they threw out a figure of estimated workforce of 3,500 or something or other. So,
Forward thinking. I like it.
they're getting into the weeds on this.
Indeed. Well, thanks everyone, and have a good afternoon.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Jennifer, thank you. Take care. Thanks, everybody.
So,
Allison, too.
Peter, two questions.